A very simple advertisement that strangely caught my attention: help the science and win $5,000. Call us right away. Why would I call them back when the ad clearly looked like a scam? Anyone could see they were trying to trick someone. But imagine this: despite all that, I called them anyway. Why? Because I needed money. Recently, I got fired from the publishing house I worked in, and I couldn't find a stable job afterwards. I stopped paying rent for months. I was about to become homeless for the second time. I didn't want to be labeled a failure. That's why I picked up my phone and called them. Who were these people? Honestly, I had no idea. Their identity was mysterious, which on its own should have been a big red flag. No information about them anywhere. A normal, rational person sees an ad like this and just ignores it. But because of the situation I was living through, I didn't think twice. I didn't care about any of that. $5,000 was a lot of money. It would solve so many of my problems. What I discovered later was that these people were researchers, scientists working for a very big company, because the device they showed me couldn't possibly be cheap. At first, they took me into a huge room in an underground floor of a tall building with many levels. When I first saw that device, I could tell it still wasn't finished. They were still attaching wires and parts. To be honest, its shape wasn't comforting at all. Suddenly, one of the researchers asked me, "Do you have any experience with sensory deprivation rooms?" I did, back in university during my spiritual and hallucination phases. But the difference between that room and this device was huge. The old one could have been just a metal tank filled with salt water, darkness, no sound, no light. It opens your mind or makes you hallucinate. But this machine was nothing like what I'd seen before. It looked like medieval armor, open and filled with thousands of wires and tubes placed on a platform. Above it, there was a large, thick copper tube going straight into the ground. The walls were full of electronic boards, servers, wires, things I didn't even recognize. Honestly, the moment you walked into that room, you felt like you weren't on Earth anymore. One thought hit me. How much electricity do they need to power all of this? That machine was worth way more than the $5,000 I was getting. I suddenly felt defeated. Why didn't I negotiate for more? They definitely wouldn't have refused. But back then I was drowning in problems, in debts. I wasn't thinking, I just wanted to pay rent and not end up on the streets. The doctor in charge of the experiment was named Dr. Monasson. Bald, blue eyes, wearing a white lab coat. He was the one who explained the device to me, gave me a bunch of papers to sign, and answered almost all my questions. One of the questions I asked was, "What exactly do you want me to do?"
It's simple. You will stay inside our sensory deprivation chamber for 3 days.
I froze. What do you mean 3 days? Won't I die?
Outside the device you would die, but inside the machine you won't feel hunger or thirst. The device handles everything. It cuts off sight, touch, hearing. Your entire body will be turned off, even your breathing. The machine will breathe for you. It will feed you through the tubes, handle liquids, remove waste. You won't feel anything. We'll use a sedative to shut down all internal and external senses. Our goal is to keep your brain floating in complete nothingness.
Then I realized something. Even the selection of volunteers was deliberate. They chose me because I had no physical or mental illnesses, because my body size fit the device perfectly, and because I lived alone. My disappearance wouldn't be noticed. No one would come looking for me. If something happened to me, no one would know. I signed the papers. They gave me 2 weeks to prepare mentally. Then the day I absolutely did not want to arrived. I was extremely anxious, but Dr. Monasson reassured me. At first you'll feel some stress, then euphoria, then calmness. When the experiment ends, we'll send you a sound signal, like a faint church bell, to wake you gently. Then came the moment I feared. They told me to take off my clothes. I entered completely naked. They put me inside the device. The interior felt like plastic or leather, something in between, tight, as if it was molded exactly to my body. They started attaching wires, tubes, needles. Then they placed the breathing mask on my face. And that's when I felt fear I'd never felt before. A voice inside me whispered, "Was this the right decision? Should you have said no?" They put headphones on me and blocked my hearing. For a moment I heard almost nothing, until Dr. Monasson's voice came through.
We can see your heart rate increasing. Try to relax. Everything will go well.
But his words only scared me more. Whenever someone tells you don't be scared, something bad usually follows. The sedative started kicking in. I couldn't feel my hands, my legs, even my chest. Soon I could only move my eyes. At one point, I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. It was like something invisible held my whole body still. In front of my eyes was a screen showing a 1-minute countdown. Looking at that minute, regret hit me like a truck. I wanted to stop. I didn't want to continue. I tried moving, nothing. 30 seconds left. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. 5 seconds. I saw Dr. Monassen coming close, saying something, but I couldn't understand.
3, 2,
The machine closed.
1.
Darkness swallowed me, a darkness I'd never experienced before. Not the darkness you get when you close your eyes, no. This felt like drowning inside the dark itself. I tried to ask myself, am I breathing? Do I have a body? Am I dead? I started counting seconds to stay sane, but eventually even that broke. My mind started replaying memories, jobs I lost, friends who left, the loneliness I'd lived with for years. Then a terrifying thought appeared. What if I'm dead? But another part of my mind answered, no, you're in the experiment. Then another voice. But if you can't feel life, how do you know you're alive? I remembered the old philosophy line. I think, therefore I am. But even that started fading. Hallucinations began. I imagined myself floating in space, among stars, planets, ice. Then the hallucinations turned violent. I saw myself tearing my skin off, my flesh cracking. And the pain felt real. Even though I knew it was my brain imagining it, my body felt it like it was actually happening. Then from far away, I heard a voice. Slowly getting closer.
This is Dr. Monassen. Congratulations, you completed your experiment.
Relief flooded me. But it didn't last. He continued.
Your results were extraordinarily good. We got approval to extend the experiment indefinitely. Don't worry, the machine will keep you alive for weeks and weeks. Thank you for your sacrifice. The money will be transferred to your bank account.
My heart collapsed. What do you mean indefinitely? I came here for 3 days, not forever. The only thought left in my head was, I'm going to die here. Alone in the dark. My mind spiraled depression, hysteria. I stopped imagining anything. Sometimes memories, sometimes nothing. Sometimes conversations with people no longer alive. Then one moment something felt wrong, different. A tiny sensation in my right foot. Like a needle slipping out. That was it. The sedative needle must have been accidentally dislodged. Maybe someone touched a wire, maybe they made a mistake. But for me, that tiny feeling was salvation. I could feel something. Even if just in my big toe. I started moving my foot slightly, scraping the needle. Pain shot through me, real pain, and that's when an idea hit me. If I injure myself, I'll bleed. They'll be forced to open the machine. In both scenarios, I could die. Bleeding out or alone in the dark. But at least if I bled, there was a chance they'd open the device. Some time passed, then I heard Dr. Monassen's voice.
We detected an injury on your right foot. We will temporarily stop the experiment to address the issue. Don't worry about anything. The device is opening now.
The moment the machine opened, the light was like the sun exploding in my eyes. The air entered my lungs. Sound returned. Sensation returned. They pulled out the needles. It was the greatest feeling of my life. The feeling of being alive again. But my body was still partially paralyzed by the sedatives. They put me on a wheelchair, checked my vitals, spoke among themselves. After hours, the sedative began to fade. Movement returned slowly. They took me to a small cold room with an iron chair, tied me to it. Dr. Monassen entered.
Tell us what you felt in the void, describe it.
I said, I want to leave, please, let me go. He ignored my words completely.
We can't let you leave. Your results were too important. You'll report us to the police. That means you must return to the machine.
The blood in my veins turned cold. Now I finally understood everything. They never intended to release me. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever. I spoke with them for hours, same questions. What did you feel? What did you see? Eventually, the sedative completely left my system. I could move 100%. But they still had me tied to the chair. I knew this would be my only chance. They needed to untie me to put me back in the device. That would be the moment to escape. So I pretended to be calm, obedient, as if I'd given up, so they wouldn't suspect anything. Hours later, they brought me back to the device, still tied to the chair. But when the moment came to put me inside, they untied me. They removed my clothes, lifted me, placed me inside the machine. I kept my body limp, pretending I was still under the effects of the sedative. The doctor whispered in my ear,
I'm sorry, this is necessary. Our research will save many lives. You may think we're the villains, but your contribution is important.
The researchers came in again to insert the needles. The right foot needle entered my skin, the sedative started to take effect. I knew I had seconds left. When they tried to insert the needle into my left foot, I jumped out of the device. You know, they were like they had just been hit by an electric shock, but it all happened in one jump. Everyone was shocked. I jumped backward, pulled out that needle from my right side, blood came out of me, but I didn't care. The only thing that mattered was that today I wasn't staying here. I ran in one burst, and don't forget, I was completely naked, and the right half of my body felt slightly numb. I started feeling half alive and half dead while I was running, not knowing where I was going. The only thing I knew was that this was my one and only chance, and that if I stayed here, it would be like staying in hell. I pushed the door and found myself in a very long hallway with stairs continuing endlessly, like some kind of maze. But I remembered those stairs. I had gone up and down them many times during the first week when I arrived, and now those stairs were my only hope of survival. One leg was working fine, and the other one I was almost dragging behind me. After a bit, I started hearing shouting and footsteps chasing me. I reached the first step and jumped over it, then the second one, then the third. My breathing was so intense I didn't even know if I was breathing or screaming. My hope started growing, especially when I looked back and saw that only 2 people were following me. At that moment, I thought maybe I could outrun them, maybe I could escape. But at the top of the stairs, that's where disaster was waiting. At least 15 men were standing there, wearing white medical uniforms, blocking the door at the main exit. They all stood shoulder to shoulder, forming a human wall, staring at me. That's when I realized the exit was sealed. The only path left was to keep going up, because the stairs kept going all the way to the rooftop. I started running again, and the stairs felt like they were stretching endlessly. My right hand kept hitting the wall, making this hollow bone-against concrete sound, but I didn't care. I just wanted to reach the rooftop and get out of this place. I finally reached the last platform where there was a metal ladder leading to the top. I told myself, this is freedom. This is the end of all this. I climbed that cold metal ladder, my feet hurting with every step until I reached the door at the top. I tried to open it. It was heavy, but it shifted a little. As I kept pushing, I suddenly felt a hand grab my leg. I looked back and saw Dr. Monason holding me. The real problem wasn't that he grabbed me, it was his eyes. His eyes were filled with the kind of evil you'd imagine in the whole world, like he truly wanted to kill me. I didn't think twice. I raised my leg and kicked him in the face so hard his teeth fell to the ground. He fell backward and let go of my leg. I pushed the door again. It was difficult, but I finally managed to open it, and I stepped out onto the rooftop. The cold air hit my face. I saw the city lights shining below, and it was the best feeling I had ever experienced. I walked across the rooftop and stood at the edge. I looked at the city, the stars, the lights, everything looked perfect in a way I had never seen before. I just stood there until I heard a voice saying,
Please come down. Stay there, we still need you to return to the machine. We will fix this problem. Please just come down.
It was Dr. Monason speaking, even though he had missing teeth and his voice was shaking. Behind him stood an entire group of scientists and researchers. I turned back to the city lights and suddenly understood one truth. There was no choice, no escape, no trust, nothing. If I went back with them, they would put me back into the machine until I died. And if I jumped, I would finally be free from the hell I was living in. One of the researchers reached out his hand to grab me. That was the moment I decided to jump. I felt the air hitting me as I fell, and a hysterical laugh escaped me. It was the exact same feeling I had inside the machine, the feeling of floating in complete, limitless freedom, something I had never felt before. At that exact moment, I heard a bell ringing. I thought maybe this sound was coming from heaven. But unfortunately, it was. I opened my eyes and found myself still inside the machine. Same silence, same darkness, same void. And in the middle of all that, I heard a voice.
This is Dr. Monassen. Congratulations, you've completed your 3 days in the machine.
If the sedative hadn't still been in my blood, I swear I would have cried until I passed out. They opened the machine and took me out. The first thing I noticed was that the spot where my blood was dripping had no wound at all. Everything was just a dream. They took me to a room to rest. They treated me, brought in my psychiatrist, and even gave me my $5,000. Strangely, after this experience, I went back to my normal life. I found a job, formed new relationships, paid my rent. Everything became perfect, as if the dream had turned into reality. But every night when I closed my eyes, I was terrified to open them again. Terrified that I might find the same darkness and start everything from the beginning, that I might still be floating in that space, among the stars, thinking again, maybe I am still inside the machine, and these 3 days are not over yet. When I got out of that machine, they treated me perfectly. They gave me a place to rest. The researchers asked me questions, but this time they weren't threatening me. They spoke gently, the way you'd expect in a therapeutic center. They asked me about the details I lived. I didn't answer any of their questions, but they answered all the questions I had always asked myself. They told me that none of what I lived was real. Everything I experienced existed only in my mind. All those distortions of time and space, the feeling of being lost, all of that was nothing more than symptoms of absolute sensory deprivation. Days later, Dr. Monassen personally arranged an appointment with a psychiatrist for me. I started taking antidepressants, and life slowly returned to normal. But this time, it didn't go back to the old life. It became perfect. Yet the problem is, I still feel like the machine is following me. Every session with the psychiatrist, I try to explain it, but the words don't come out. I keep telling myself, no, I'm out, the experience is over. And then a voice inside my brain whispers,
"But you got out once before, and then you discovered it was all an illusion. So who told you that this time isn't also an illusion?"
I close my eyes, breathe, and try to convince myself that I truly left the machine. But the question I ask myself every single day is, this life I'm living now, could it be the last hallucination of my dying brain? Before every cell shuts down, and everything fades into nothingness,